Welcome to Oz Talk. Today we're meeting the lead writer of Adventures in Oz, the vibrant first-of-its-kind crossover where Dungeons & Dragons role-play gaming meets the Wizard of Oz. Our special guest co-host, making her second appearance on Oz Talk, it's Sarah Crotzer, editor-in-chief of the Baum Bugle. This show is brought to you by the Oz Club. Since 1957, the International Wizard of Oz Club has been bringing fans together. Please visit ozclub.org to join for membership. Hi, Sarah.
Hey guys.
Thanks so much for joining us again. How have you been?
Doing just fine. Ready to go to Oz with all of you.
Yes, we loved that. We all loved the last Bugle. Can't wait for the next one. And let's start today with some Oz hot topics. We've heard about recently in the news a new book coming out from Christopher Schmel called The State of Oz that apparently is being set up as something that can transport new readers back to that exact same feeling L. Frank Baum created with his original books. And when I read the synopsis, it said that it was sort of about like Oz in conflict with like the American government. I thought that might be a really unique twist. Zoe, what do you think of that?
I'm reserving judgment. It sounds like an interesting premise, but at the same time, I feel like we've seen the political war-torn Oz a lot in the last decade or two. So I'm kind of like, if you want to do something new, and that's
not new. Sarah, what were your thoughts?
Well, I mean, satirical Oz is nothing new. L. Frank Baum liked to play with satire on the America of his day, and of course, we've seen that in Martin Gardner's Visitors from Oz and some of the March Lomer books. And I don't know, it sounds interesting to me. I don't know a lot about it, but the review on Goodreads seems positive, and I'm willing to give that a try.
Very cool. When I was looking at it, I saw that the new news article had this beautiful color illustrative type cover, but then I also found one that appeared to have an older cover that might have previously been published. So I don't know if this is a new edition or if it's all the same book or just dates are wrong. You can't really trust anything online, right? Garrett, what was your opinion when you heard about this book?
I'm always excited for new Oz books. I mean, books are my jam. I'm always excited for new Oz books. I think the thing that has me most intrigued about this one is not only does he reference that he's bringing in material from Thompson, which is probably the first time that's really kind of happened recently until, because her books have still been under copyright largely, but it's also got two male protagonists, which was a very Thompson thing as well. So I'm going to be very curious to see, is this going to be truly more Baumian, or is he going to be skewing a little more Thompson with it?
Mm-hmm. It will be interesting to see. Tori, are you going to check it out?
I think this is no secret that I'm much more of the film fan than I am of the book fan. However, this one, in terms of the way that the synopsis talks about how they get to Oz by crossing a random bridge, it sounds so Baumish that I feel like it really might bring me back to that feeling that I had the first time I read the original 14 novels. So yes, I'm absolutely going to give it a try. And like Zoe, I'm going to reserve judgment until I get my hands on the copy for myself.
Next, let's discuss that someone very special in Oz is returning to Oz, and that is Jessica Grove, who debuted as Dorothy in the Madison Square Garden production of The Wizard of Oz, starring Mickey Rooney as the Wizard, Eartha Kitt, Roseanne Barr, Joanne Worley all played the Wicked Witch of the West, and now Pittsburgh CLO has brought her back as an adult to reprise the role. There she is with her Toto. I mean, this is really, really fantastic news. What do you guys make of it? Tori.
So, I'm so excited. I love Jessica Grove as Dorothy. I think she might be one of the best stage Dorothys we've had in the last 30 years. She was absolutely spectacular in the Madison Square Garden production, and at such a young age, she just really had that Judy Garland-esque gravitas. And my goodness, she looks like she hasn't aged a day. I want to know her secret. So I wish I could be there to see it in person. I'm just so thrilled that she's coming back to play the role again.
Mm-hmm. Zoe, would you be going to see her in it if you could?
I would do it because I'd be very curious. And I hate to sound like the Debbie Downer of this episode. I've yet to see a Dorothy in her 30s portray it well. So I would be curious to see how have her acting chops improved since she was wonderful back in 1997. So I would like to see, has her acting skill built in a way that she can believably portray a 12-year-old in her mid-30s? Because I am in my early 30s and I could never dream of going and trying to play a 12-year-old right now. So I would really be curious to see if she pulls it off. I think if anyone could do it, it's probably her.
I would hope so. I interviewed her recently for a reunion special about the cast from Madison Square Garden, and she still has all that great energy and love for Oz. I'm really excited. I saw her in the Madison Square Garden production. I would love to see it. Sarah, did you get to see it when it was at Madison Square Garden?
No, I'm going to be odd man out. I've actually never seen the Madison Square Garden show. But I have to say, looking at all the pictures, something that really spoke to me as a person with a disability is I'm delighted to see what a diverse cast it has and how people with all kinds of bodies are represented on stage. I think it's so important that Oz be for everyone, and that when kids and families go and see a show, that they can see themselves represented there too. So I think that looks really neat.
I agree. Do you agree, Garrett?
That was the thing that I was most interested about with the production. Kind of like Zoe, as much as I do love Jessica Grove, I am mildly skeptical of her age. I actually would really love to have seen her grow into either Glinda or maybe even the Wicked Witch, and see what she would bring as a former Dorothy to one of those parts. But I love how diversified the cast is. I love that I love that idea of it, because to me, Oz should be all inclusive, and by throwing that onto the stage, that makes my little heart happy.
I agree. I think that's great. They do have people with disabilities in the show. It is a very, very diverse cast. The Lion is cast as female. I saw their Glinda is African American, which is fantastic. Sort of following suit, because in January 2019, Wicked on Broadway sort of led the way, bringing the first Black Glinda, courtesy of Brittany Johnson, to the stage. But we even saw some diversification in Oz when Harvey Fierstein made Queen Latifah female as the role of the Wiz, for the Wiz Live. So I love that we are opening up and seeing some more diversity in the land of Oz. It's super fun.
I think it's worth noting that there's kind of been a great history of Oz having diverse casting, because if you go back to 1996, I think, or 1995, Wizard of Oz in Concert, Natalie Cole was Glinda.
Mm-hmm.
And
right, yes.
I am a huge fan of Black Glindas. I think they bring such great energy. And when they sing like Natalie Cole, they bring so much voice, so much power and beauty to it. And I love it so much.
Absolutely. It's so fantastic. Well, let's welcome our special guest, Jeannie Warner. She's the lead writer of Adventures in Oz. With more than 1,500 backers, raising over $145,000, it's now the highest grossing Oz-themed project in Kickstarter history. It's an impressive launch. The developers bring their decades of business, gaming, and creative experience to the table, plus their great passion for L. Frank Baum's Oz. This 5e gaming experience consists of 2 gorgeous hardcover source books with amazing illustrations that bring Oz to life for the first time in a Dungeons & Dragons role-playing game environment. The campaign setting fully details locations, character classes, professions, magic items, playable races, situations, so much more, and all you need to start your own adventure down the Yellow Brick Road. The Beasts and Beings book allows game masters to fully realize Oz in their games, or even insert Oz into other existing D&D games. Check out the crowdfunding campaign video.
Decades in the making, Oz finally comes to the world's most popular role-playing game. Bring the iconic races of Oz to your 5th edition games. Be a munchkin on the Yellow Brick Road, perhaps an honorable tin man, or even a flying monkey. It doesn't take a tornado or a shipwreck to be transported to the land of Oz, but it helps. No matter where your character was born, the land of Oz will find a way to transport the beings it requires from any realm to solve its needs. For the first time in 5th edition, we bring the creatures and lands of Oz to life beyond the travels of one human girl from Kansas. Explore the world of Oz and the entire new continent of Non-Estica. Oz waits for you, players. And your little dog, too.
Backers have until July 16th, 2021 to pledge the project. After that, it will be made available commercially. So let's welcome Jeannie.
Thank you. It is excellent to be here with you today.
Hi, Jeannie. Thank you so much for being here today.
It delights me, Tori.
So for someone like me who perhaps is a little unfamiliar with this particular gaming format, how does it work and how does one get started?
Well, 5e is based on the original Dungeons and Dragons game. So all you need is a handful of dice and a piece of paper and a bunch of really good friends. And you sit around and you decide what kind of character would you like to make. Now, what we have done is taken a bunch of the intrinsic Oz characters and said, maybe if you haven't played any other kind of Dungeons and Dragons, you can just make something straight in Oz. You can make a Munchkin or a Winky or a Skeezer or one of the Rose people if you like Ozga. I love Ozga. And then you do a talking table through adventure, and you have somebody who leads you who says, you're walking down a yellow brick road. You suddenly see a beaver. Yes, you're pretty sure it's a beaver. It's got some kind of flowers in its hair and a little robe. What do you do? And you decide, based on what you've been built up of your character and your class and your profession, how do I react to a fairy beaver?
I want to be a fairy beaver in my next life.
Right?
Okay, so first off, I did totally back this. This was like, I just got so excited. And I'm thrilled at how much y'all pulled from the books, because I'm a big book fan. In fact, Ozga, it's funny you mentioned that. When I saw that, I was like, I'm sold. You threw Ozga in, I've got to do this.
Oh, and Ozana's my love too, because, she was one of Lurleen's bands.
Oh, yeah.
Cool high-level fairy action here, man.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm totally game. So one of my big questions is, obviously, you guys know the books. What did y'all kind of run into adapting-wise, maybe in terms of continuity errors? Because Baum was inconsistent, Thompson even more so. How did y'all tackle that sort of aspect?
There was some of it that we agreed from the very beginning. And I worked with David Speakman, who's the main creative director, and he came to me as a writer and said, I want this to be updated. I want it to be Oz that anybody has representation for. So we've worked with all of our writers with all of the other artists to say, all right, I need to make sure that everything is represented, because I saw The Wiz when I was a kid too, which was my introduction to Diana Ross as Glinda, and I loved it. She was my Ozana in many ways, because I wanted a black lead fairy, because Oz was very whitewashed a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And although he was raised by suffragettes, as you all know, I'm sure you've talked about before, he still had the certain 1910 to 1920s patriarchal point of view. And so what we did is we really sat through and tried to say, we're going to soften some of it. Mm-hmm. So we've changed only a few of the words to be modern a little bit more. So I am not going to refer to Hottentots or boogaboos or other racially charged terms. Those are slightly changed. But the idea of each character we kept as correct and original as we could. So we created the one that are veggie bonds. They're vegetable creatures who grow and die quickly and then are looking for the secret of living longer for their whole race. So that's what I tried to do, is go through here and say, if it's inconsistent, like remember he starts, nobody lives forever, and now everybody lives forever. We decided that in order to have danger, no one lives forever. There's a Council of Immortals, which we borrowed from other of Oz books. And there's some people that are fairies that live a long time, but has to be danger for adventurers. Even if those adventurers are little girls or little boys wandering around the roads of Oz, you have to be able to die or there's no risk. However, we also wanted to make it so that kids could play and kids talk more.
This brings up some really interesting issues. On the one hand, I'm just delighted to see kind of the wide range of creatures that you're incorporating from the Oz books, right? I see cottobuses and mifkets and parabruins, who I assume are all rubber bears. And that's great. And that feels very familiar to me for what RPGs do. They give you all sorts of different creatures to play or to play against, right? But the other thing that I know about RPGs is they often involve a lot of fighting and violence and killing, which I see, for instance, in the little sample module that's on your Kickstarter, the Sire Horse Rules, which was very charming. What direction would you give potential players, maybe families with children, who would like to experience your game, your World of Oz, without violence or in a more nonviolent way?
It is an unexpectedly true and fantastic thing that kids want to talk to everything. Like anybody who's been out in public, kids want to touch things, they want to lick things, they want to move things from place to place. Kids, as we remember Dorothy and Betsy and all of the others as they were wandering through the books, they talked, please don't eat me. I would rather you don't eat me. Do you want to make a bargain? Every creature in Oz can talk. There is no reason that you couldn't, if you were wanting to run a game for kids. It's an encounter. Sure, there's fairy beavers there, but let's talk to the fairy beaver. Let's just not charge ahead like a murder hobo and mow them down. And so because almost everything can talk, anybody could go through and say a kid can talk their way out of almost any encounter, or sneak, because sometimes you can't talk your way out of it, but you need to sneak your way out of it. And there are many different ways that you could approach any of the creatures here. You could bargain, you could bribe, you could, okay, don't kill me. And what is it you desire most in the world? Let me help you achieve that goal. And kids do that probably even more than adults do. So if you have adults that can go through and kill everything and then look through their packs, or you have kids that can say, well, how can I help you, Miss Fairy Beaver? What's your problem?
That's awesome.
First of all, I'm supposed to shake my fist at you on behalf of my husband because you beat him to the punch. He actually had always wanted to create a 5e version of Oz, but he's very glad that someone did it. So I'm also supposed to applaud you for actually doing it.
There is an opportunity to make extensions and individual adventures within the system. So I'm just saying.
Okay. Now, on to my actual question. Have you thought about taking the game on the road at all and bringing it to Oz events and showing it off, and maybe even having demonstrations where people can join in and play the game live with other Oz fans?
We would totally love to. As a matter of fact, I will provide Garrett and Ryan the link, but we did have an online bunch of gamers that run on Gaming 5e podcast. We said, here, try this. And so they did, and they recorded their way through the Cider Horse rules. And I am entirely for that. First of all, I'm a big gaming geek. I love board games to start with. And I've used to go to Tacticon regularly, considered Genghis Khan. But yes, I think this should absolutely go on the road, and anybody should try it that wants to, because Oz has so much to offer. They have so many interesting stories. And for me, role-playing is all about the storytelling.
One of the things that struck me most about your very successful campaign, there's no arguing with it, is how gorgeous the artwork is. And you worked with illustrators from all over the world. What did you find their impression was of Oz outside of the US?
Some of them had no impression of it all, and we'll be blunt with that. And some of them, Oz is actually popular internationally, so they had a lot of different image. One of our biggest challenges was dealing with the fact that many of the illustrators were fantasy artists and were very used to the Frank Frazetta type of, let's just say, large-bosomed women with very high heels. And I had a few times step in and say, no, I am not walking 200 miles on a pair of stripper heels. So we had to work with them to say, this is our vision. Dorothy has to remain a little girl because she was a little girl. And create Miss Cut and Clip is a little girl. Please don't make her adult and creepy. She's a little girl and creepy. But each of these things we wanted to make sure were stayed as true as possible to the original, while affording an opportunity to create what time are we facing here. So that was why we had to sort of narrow it down to a little bit of a timeline, a little bit of what the costumes were going to look like. How do we make it consistent across the different areas? And then how do we take the D&D races and mold them into the Oz world? Because maybe it wasn't just Dorothy. Maybe people have been going to Oz from the different D&D realms and planes for hundreds of years.
So as Ryan mentioned, your Kickstarter campaign was extremely successful, and you must be so proud of that. So my question is, does that also so far reflect the response you've received from Oz fans?
It has, actually. It has exploded in all of our comments. And so we try to get back to people as we can, because, for instance, shortly in, people said, well, what if I want to play a talking animal? Which, although we'd already had, I'm just going to say I'd written about 300 pages worth of material for this. It's like, talking animals, you're right, that is an awful lot of fun. So it sent us back. And the fact that people were willing to keep funding above what we wanted to said, all right, I am still writing now. How do we make talking animals? We added the deities and immortals of Oz, and how do we translate that into 5e terms and make it so that anybody can play it? And for those that love 5e, we wanted to bring every single piece of Oz into it so they can get what they expect. But for Oz lovers, we wanted them to be able to say, yes, I recognize that, or, that was a one sentence. I don't know if it was a throwaway for Frank or what, but here it is, and it is now a full monster. We have 100 monsters and every kind of beasts and monsters and oddities of Oz all together in one place.
Okay, so I just got to say, first off, I'm totally stealing #FairyBeaver. Like that's just a thing.
As you should.
So with that in mind, which character or characters are you the most excited about, or the most proud of, or both?
Oh gosh, I love them all. For me, the adventure has been working with the guys and working with the different artists for, honestly, that representation. The idea that Oz had that girls can do anything. You have General Ginger there on the left and Princess Ozga on the right. And I love the Wicked Witch of the West and the stories, because we had the Wicked Witch of the West and the Wicked Witch of the East were never really named. And Elphaba we love very much, but that's Gregory Maguire, so we didn't use anybody else's copyrighted pieces. So for me, in D&D terms, we started to say, what if a half-orc who happens to be green came to Oz and studied the magic? What would she trade in order to be melded with the land of Oz in the West? What if she traded her name? What if there is no name, but everybody knows her as the Witch of the East and the Witch of the West, and how that became? So it was creating the story that works between everything that Oz had plus a little bit of 5e, so that they could both exist simultaneously and everybody could agree, yeah, that's exactly what happened in the Wicks. I'm sure that's what Frank meant. I'm most excited about the Scarecrow's origin story, though.
That sounds really fun, Jeannie. And it sounds like you've put an awful lot of work into this.
This has been a project I've been writing on for the past year and a half. So. Oh,
wow. Goodness. Well, it sounds like there's just so much to uncover. I know your campaign offers different ways for people to kind of become more involved. I'm going to be talking to you at some point in the future about a new NPC. And I'm curious if the interest is there, and it seems like it is. How do you want to keep expanding the game? Where do you see it kind of going from here? What next?
I come at this from a writer's point of view. And for me, the writing is the fun part. Mm-hmm. I foresee a lot of people might say, who get this and get the books in their hands and say, I am a professional GM. And by professional, I mean, I've been doing this forever. Ask anybody who does it. They're pros. I like to see the idea that maybe at some of these games, they could have Oz tournaments, and for maybe who's written the better game or the most interesting game. And what does that look like? And maybe they'd write more. Any single animal or oddity or creature that you read about, I included something that could make it a story. For instance, I love my flamingos, which are flamingos that breathe fire, in defense, pyrotechnic displays, and poetry. And I said that other creatures avoid them for all three reasons. But in any of these instances, I like the idea that somebody could write a story. Like, for instance, to audition for this to make sure that David had published my work before in an online fanzine, Typebeam. But I created a story of a rogue, a thief from a 5e universe that wants to get to Oz because maybe somebody has managed to smuggle out mechanical things from Oz, like TikTok, who is fabulous.
Yeah.
So my opening story is, how does a thief sneak their way into Oz, and what does that look like? And what if there was a little warehouse cat, that you keep against mice, happen to get stuck in there with him? Huh? And then it learns it can talk.
I wanted to applaud you for using the name La Costa for the Good Witch of the North and not Tatipu.
Absolutely. Well, we had both of them in there because somebody's going to know it. But what if Tatipu is the name that Mombi, who is also trying to become the Cardinal Witch of the North? Propaganda campaigns exist for a reason.
I think that's very creative.
What if she was aged during the combat? What if Mombi had some sort of life-aging thing so that Lacosta started young and beautiful, but by the end of this struggle was not so much
No, that's a really great thing to think about. And but that kind of brings me on to the topic, talking about the name Tatipu. Do you have any interest, or did you rely primarily on Baum's books for inspiration, or did you borrow from Thompson's books and Snow's books or any other adaptations?
This was everything that Baum wrote, because David, our CEO of Double Critical, is also trained as a lawyer. So we are very strict for the intellectual property that is open source and available to us. So although we like Ruth Plumley, we like a lot of the others that wrote on it, we really tried to stick to the original Oz and not go with anybody else's explanations. Many people tried to cover for the inconsistencies of Frank to say, well, maybe he meant this, or which one is real? No, really, it's this. We did our own. That's the fun part.
So it's Oz fans first, and then you have all your professional skill set, you and David Speakman. What was it like to be able to put your own spin on Oz, and then also to kind of expand the story in the fandom?
Well, it was delightful for me because I spent every summer as a kid, when I was about Dorothy's age, in Arkansas with my parents, which was like being exiled to another country. But they had a library with every Oz book ever written. So that was when I lay in a hammock and read the Oz books over and over again. So for me, as it was a thing of passion. So when David came to me and said, I want to do this with Double Critical, but I want somebody that both loves Oz and can write. I'm like, sign me up. I am so there for you. There is such a wealth of glorious storytelling, even in the little throwaway things that Oz has, like the Bunny Burians, the Utensians. Where did they come from? How can somebody figure out what they are and what is fun about them? How can they move and become real to a player, whether that player's of any age? Can they try to kill it? Can they merely try to take apart the fuddles? And what does that mean? All of these riddles were what is so much fun for me to write about and to share with people. The intricate, tiny details of all the creatures in Oz and all of the lands of Oz and some of the outside and even the ocean. I'm hoping somebody wants to say, I want to write Pirates of Oz or Pirates on the Nonestic Ocean, because that was kind of what Baum called the rest of it, the land of Nonestica, the Nonestic Ocean, the land of Oz within it, but separated by the deadly desert. What is deadly about the desert? All of these things became really neat to work out and figure out what works with the 5e gaming terms and what is still faithful to all of that. I wanted to go back to a question that somebody asked me about what do I hope for in the future. I hope this inspires a lot of writers out there. There's a huge writing community. You can even look up #writing community. I would love people to want to publish new short stories set in Oz on the different themes. You can always see what themed anthologies are coming up for submission. I think Oz fits so much. They can fit anything from gender identity. Let's face it, the Princess Ozma was a boy for a long time. Tip, a servant of Mombi. There are a lot of interesting issues that came forth. I'm hoping that somebody might find my Scarecrow and how I described him to be I need to write out that story more completely. And maybe we'll start seeing more Oz books hitting the market. And maybe there'll be more at the kid level and at the adult level of Oz brought forth to a new generation of readers all over the globe.
I'm interested actually in your Scarecrow, since you seem so excited about it. Can you give us any sneak peek information about that?
Well, I can. So let's see. You have the Wicked Witch of the East, who rules everything with an iron fist. And East is air, and she's killed by air. So, we assume she's the Weather Queen. So you have, maybe she has not given them enough rain. Munchkin Land is very full of farmers, etc. So imagine a committee that wants to organize, maybe unionize, my little nod toward wandering off with this. And the lead guy goes and says, we need this, we need more rain, we need this. And they're making all the demands. And the Wicked Witch says, I see, how dare you come and tell me what to do? She wants to make sure that they never organize with him again, because he's clearly a charismatic leader. So she turns them all into a flock of crows, except for him, that she makes a scarecrow and hangs in his own field so that they will never want to go near him again.
Love it.
I'm just so excited.
I was going to say there's playtesting out there, or on Facebook. I believe there's an open Oz playtesting set. You can come check it out.
Very, very cool. Jeannie Warner, lead writer of Adventures in Oz, the a 5e role-playing game. It is such a thrill to talk to you. Your knowledge of Oz is impressive. You are welcome here anytime. This is super fun hearing about your game, but also just hearing you wax philosophic about all of Baum's characters, and your love really comes through. And so, it's great whenever a new Oz project, whether it's a film or a book or a game, comes out, and just to know that the people worked on it. I mean, because all of us as diehard Oz fans know when something comes out and there wasn't a consultant on the project who cared about Baum or accuracy. We go into a tizzy. So it's a thrill to see someone like you and your team put together a product like this. People have until just July 16th, 2021 to still back the project. After that, though, Jeannie, how can people purchase and participate in Adventures in Oz?
After that, it's going to turn into pre-orders. We are aiming for a drop-dead date of March 2022 and hoping that we will be able to move that up. However, there are logistical challenges during the pandemic, we have had a challenge getting, for instance, we put the art of Oz onto a card deck in advance and sold copies of the card deck, and they're gorgeous. But it took so much longer to fulfill because of COVID and people working and not working. So it is our dearest hope that at the very latest, it will be March 2022. I am hoping and praying for Christmas.
Jeannie Warner, it has been so much fun talking to you. And I just love that anyone interested who maybe is able to still back it up until July 16th. But after that, they can go to doublecritical.com for pre-orders to learn more about the game and to participate at that point.
Absolutely. You can also follow us on Twitter or find us on Facebook. We are open for both of those. And I'm just going to do this because love you all. Thank you for being part of my Oz world.
Thank you, Oz. All right. Thank you so much to Sarah Crotzer, editor-in-chief of the Baum Bugle, for joining us as guest co-host this week. You're fabulous. We love you. Zoe, if you don't mind, take it away and tell everybody where they can join the Oz Club.
You can join the Oz Club by visiting our website at ozclub.org. It is so simple. There's just a little button where you can click to join now. An annual membership for an adult is only $30, but if you are a huge Oz fan and you want to support the club and get some extra perks, be sure to check out our other membership levels, such as sustaining, contributing, or maybe Wizard Circle. If you really want to support the club, do it. You can also, if you have a youth in your life who loves the Oz books, you can get a youth membership for them for only $15 a year. And all memberships come with a subscription to the Baum Bugle and the Oz Gazette, which is our special children's newsletter. And you can also check out information on our virtual national convention, which is happening August 6th through 8th at ozconvention.org. We hope to see you there.